Listen to the LARP Lounge live on Sundays at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time at twitch.tv/Aerostar. That's twitch.tv/ARRUSTAR.
Hello, welcome everybody to Season 2, Episode 7 of the LARP Lounge. Here today we have our guest over here is...
James Bernard, dressed up as my Frack Rackham pirate character, who I'm currently playing in the game.
Frack Rackham, I didn't know. I don't ever know anyone's last names because nobody ever gives them out usually, so...
Yeah, no need.
Yeah, so... before we get started, I have to ask you one question that I always ask everybody. I forgot last week, so I'm bad about that. But what does LARP mean to you?
Fun, a getaway. I mean, when I started LARPing, I was, 18, 19, something like that. And I'd never heard of LARP. Like, there were no popular LARPs in the country that I knew of back then. I started playing Nero, New England role-playing organization. I think they had been around for like a year when I started. There's a good story behind that. But I'll just say fun, and escape. Because getting away from the real world is I think, important.
Yeah.
For that escape, a different reality, and a whole new set of friends, and experiences, and other people who are like you. It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood, a new family, all of those things.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. A lot of people use the word family, and I kind of feel like that's pretty accurate because we see each other so much that it is kind of like family. So let's see. We've got some comments and some questions already. So Nevitz Gaming is here. That's Boji. We have
Hey,
Bright.
Sheriff.
Yeah, he's the new sheriff. Oh no, he's not the new sheriff. He's the old sheriff.
He'll always be the sheriff to me. He knows
the
it.
sheriff. Yeah. We got a new sheriff. Let's see. And then Brightwind says, greetings from Brightworm Studios and the LARPerazzi. Well, thank you for being here. And then Amy Chibi says, I'd like to ask a question. What measures do you plan to take with all this coronavirus situation? Are you planning to cancel events or something similar? I don't know. You're not really on staff anymore, are you?
No, I'm a guest staff person now.
So,
I can answer it if you want.
Yeah,
I could throw my guess out there. So I also own a haunted house, Castle of Chaos, and an escape room business there. And I can tell you, like everyone else in the country, you just watch. You watch and see what's happening. I bought a lot of extra disinfectant and wipes and stuff. So we clean up a lot more often. I think in a LARP setting, you do the same thing. You don't panic. You keep doing your normal life. Understand if you're older that you need to be more careful. But I think, my age and down, it's not as serious as it is for the older people. And so you just have to be smart, Yeah, absolutely wash your hands some more. And then if it gets worse, where it's really spreading in the community, then we'll have to look at it and see if we hold off on some events or do it differently.
well, and let's see. Brightwind says it's getting a bit spooky out here in Seattle for LARPs. Yeah, I can imagine out there for sure because it's definitely a lot worse out there. We just have one confirmed case so far. So, but the other nice thing I think about Mythograms too is that people are conscientious of that. So if someone's feeling even slightly under the weather, they don't come because they don't want to get anybody else sick. So like for coronavirus aside, they just don't want to be spreading around any diseases. So anyone who's even slightly under the weather, they'll post, sorry, I'm not feeling the greatest, so I'm not going to come because they don't want to spread that. So I think that's a real nice thing. But I like that question. I appreciate that. I appreciate you guys being here. So let's get into this. So you started in other LARPs, and then I understand that you came here, and that was kind of the birth of...
I'll tell you my origin story.
Yeah.
So, 18, 19, something like that. I always been a gamer, loved to play board games. Played D&D when I was younger, but then stopped in high school. And then one of my best friends, Scott, my brother in game Frick Rackham, Scotty, he was a big nerd, and I was too, but not as big as he was.
Mm-hmm.
He was into this thing called LARP. First time I'd ever heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of living with me off and on at the time. We had graduated high school, and I think it was after I got back from the military, like before I went on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna go do this LARP thing. I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, oh yeah, we dress up and we go in the woods and pretend we're doing like live Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm like, oh, that's geeky. I mean, that's weird. I just never heard of anything like it.
Yeah.
I mean, other than like Lord of the Rings, reading the books, but I never heard of anyone doing it live. So I made fun of him a little bit. And he's like, well, you got to help me. And I'm like, oh, he's one of my best friends. Of course I'm going to help him. So he's like, I'm going to go get some armor. So we went and got some scrap linoleum from a flooring store. And that was his leather armor. And I remember making fun of him, like, what are you going to be, like Rambo? You're going to like lay down on the floor in the bathroom and jump out and kill people? It was fun. And the swords back then, of course, were PVC pipe and copper tubing insulation, and that was it. So silver duct tape. They did not look so fancy or fun. So I mocked him pretty hardcore. We had good fights with the swords, of course.
Yeah.
But other than beating on each other, I just thought he was a little weird. And then he came back and he told me the story of his first Nero event where there were 380 people or something at it, and he was up the whole weekend, got like 2 hours nap. There you go. Yep. And and the stories he told of battling, and I'm like, oh my god, that actually sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So I gathered 6 or 7 of us, and we went up to the next event, and I absolutely fell in love with LARPing. I mean, that was Nero, back when there was only one Nero, and then moved to Utah years later. But while I was on my mission, Scotty and my older brother Rob, oldest brother, they were in Utah, and they wanted to start a LARP because they had both played in Nero, starting with Scott, and I advised them, hey, get a hold of this other guy, Scott Hamilton, out in Massachusetts, because he really wants to start another LARP or expand Nero or do something like that. And so they called him up, and they decided not to go with Nero and expand that, do a chapter, but do their own LARP. So that's when Adventure Quest was born. And then when I got off my mission, I helped run that for a few years. But in the end, the game wasn't going where I wanted it to go. So I backed out for like a year and then started Mythic after that.
So, I mean, the Adventure Quest wasn't going where you're going. So what made you start another one? Like, just like the lore of LARP was just, you were missing out on it, or?
Yeah, I think I knew by that time LARP would always be a part of my life, But I'm very business oriented, and I was working full time, overtime, had kids, had I had a couple of side jobs that I was doing, so I was very busy, and I took LARPing seriously. And so when I started Mythic, I think I put $25,000-$30,000 into the initial setup, and
wow.
And we had a spread out town in the woods, and everyone had their, hey, here's $1,000 to buy all your knickknacks to make it look like a mage's guild and a merchant's guild, and buy the big 20 by 40 or 20 by 30 tents, all of that stuff. And Quest had kind of gone away from there's a way to do it that keeps it serious and like a business, so that you're treating everyone who's there like a customer.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. While it's a family, you also need to take it seriously, because people are paying good money and taking their time.
So let's see. We got a few comments. Let's see. Brightwim Glass says, glad to be here. Brightwim also says, frickin' frag rackham lol. And then Terminator 2 style linoleum attack. And then Nevitz has a question. So yeah, go ahead and ask your question, Nevitz. Yeah, that was one of my questions, actually. He says, did you ever think Mythic Realms would be around for as long as it has?
Yep. When I started Mythic, I said, Mythic's going to be around forever, and we're going to create a rule system that allows it to the very first characters that you play can play when you're 15, and they can be still playing when you're 75. And that was one of the problems with Quest, although I loved it. It had to reset the characters, and by like the third or fourth time it reset, I was like, this is not what I want. I want you to, if you want to play a character forever, you can. And so we needed rules that back that up. And while the rules have changed a lot, we've always kept that at heart, and that's why I still play King Alaric Falconcrest. You know, even though he's not the active king right now, I still play the same character that was the first character I played in 1999.
Yeah,
I believe is when we started.
So Brightworm asks, how long has it been around? So 99 was the first year?
I think so. I think we're 21, 22 years in now.
Yeah. I think they said something like this, like the 22nd Winterfest or something like that.
Yeah. So I did. I pictured myself, old like I am now, playing an older king and whatnot, like I saw in Nero so many years ago, with all ages, and I wanted that.
So how much of the lore, like we started on a different continent back then. So how did you come up with the world and the lore and even the rules? Like because it was an in-depth rule set, because I remember I played it in like 02, 03, and like you said, it's definitely changed since then. But how did you go about coming up with all of that? I mean,
that's where you come to the family, you know, and a lot of players have come and gone in 20 years. But I certainly can't take credit for creating the whole game in any way, shape, or form. I was the driving force behind it. I took it as on the business side to make sure it stayed organized. But there were so many people who helped. I mean, develop the stories, the history. We all had our own D&D, you know, backgrounds, or Nero or Adventure Quests, you know. So we pulled from everything we could, all the gaming rules that we could look up and check things out. And then we all sat down and put in bits and pieces of it and drew a map, and you know. So I can't. I like I said, I can take credit for being the driving force, but I remember having meetings at my house in Farmington, and you know, Steve Hagen and Andy and JT, and they did a lot of the written history. I think Rex Riviere was one of the original. Kathy might have been. It's been so long, but yeah, a whole bunch of us sat down and wrote it all up. And in the original rulebook, actually, and I don't know if it's still there, but the opening page gave credit to a lot of those people who and who no longer play and haven't for years. But I always wanted that to stay in the rulebook. Hopefully, it's still there.
So Brightworm says your LARP has graduated high school and is a junior in college. That is a crazy way to think about it. If you think, I mean, those kind of terms. If you, and then Nevitz says, what do you think of the current state of the game, story, characters, etc.?
I don't play as much as I used to, so I'm not the best judge. What I will say is, I really enjoy playing. You know, when I do get out, the players are fantastic. Tons of new faces, and still a fair amount of people who have been around for 20 years. Sometimes some more, some who were in Quest with me back in the day, back in the 90s, who still play now. And the game, while the rules have been tweaked and changed and whatnot, it still has the same flavor that it always had, and that's what I love. And the current staff in Mythic, the game wouldn't be around without them. You know, I certainly helped keep it alive and at certain times, but again, so have 10 other people. It wouldn't exist without all of us, and that still has that flavor, which I love.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got lots of staff, and they all work together. And without one of them, I think it would kind of just fall apart. So because they all kind of balance everything between themselves for sure.
Yep.
So
and step up when needed, and that's awesome.
Yeah, they do. So what was the name of the first continent that we played on?
Laroth was.
Was it Laroth? Because I keep hearing there was another one that I keep hearing about that we used to play on too. It was like. It's similar because there's Laroth and Taroth, and then there's another one I don't remember.
Veroth, where the Emperor is, and then there's the Old Continent, but that was history, not actual play.
Not actual play, okay.
Yeah, the Old Continent. They fled the Old Continent. Man, hand, I still am reticent to give up, stories unless you earn them in game. So I'm not going to go into it too much. But the old continent, there was a plague, and think of it like an explosion as well, and they fled, dragons and others, to Taroth, Varoth, and other places, and that was like Laroth was a virgin continent in many ways, and that's where the game went and started in Kingsport and spread from there as the Heartlands. Then there was a second plague that happened, I think 10 years or so before, to set the stage of the current when the game started, plot lines of the king trying to reforge the kingdom from his father, the Duke, and the old Heartland kingdom, which was almost completely wiped out.
I think I remember a lot with the plague when we very first started playing back when I was back working at Castle back when it was up on Highland Drive, man. That was a long time ago. So let's see. Nevitz Gaming says Rome is in Varoth, yes. I don't know that.
The answer is Rome is everywhere. Oh. So Rome, RHOUM, which you'll see on the new coins as well. The old continent, the empire was Rome. The capital cities are named after the empire as well, and so you'll find Rome, that name, in each of the continents.
I didn't know that. That's cool. Let's see. Brightworm says, how do you deal with the changing needs for rules, safety, and inclusion in LARP? Can you speak to your review process? Lots of older LARP struggle with that.
Changing of rules. There are for every player you have, everyone has a different idea of what the rules should be. So, number one, there's no way to ever make everyone happy. Yeah. You just try. You try to do your best, and you hope that people can adapt to it. We've lost players because they were a big part of rules development, and then the game went a different way, and they felt slighted. And many of those have come back and done it again, and so many people come and go. But I would say the rules are a base in how to have fun, and you bring up safety, and that has to be a primary concern. So I couldn't speak to the safety of the game right now, or even who does that. Back when I was running things the first 10-ish years of the game, we did very thorough weapons checks. We had rules marshals for every event who were always looking at safety to ensure that new players and old players alike, weapons were safe and people weren't swinging too hard and things like that.
Yeah, right now we still do the inspections, like you said. There's still, like, whenever a new weapon's brought in, we have someone, I believe it's Candace now, who's in charge of that. So she inspects it. She inspects the shield. She inspects the armor. She has a backup person, too. Like, at the Winterfest, they were doing inspections on everybody since we had some new players there, too. They were just doing an all-around inspection on everyone's gear, just kind of like a quarterly thing, too, just to make sure it's all up to snuff and it's all safe. Yeah. So... but they agree with your comment about how you can't make everyone happy. That's truth. But and these are some great questions. And if you want, next week I'm going to have some members of staff that are on plot, so they might be better address these questions as well too.
For how it's done now.
Yeah, for how it's done now.
Yeah, back in the day, we did what Nero did, which was every single weapon had to have a weapon card in a sheath on the weapon, and that had a safety element to it. So that it was currently checked by how that was marked. But it also told you what kind of weapon it was, and if it was magical, if it was whatever. If it was magical, you could steal the weapon. So if you had a physical magic weapon, doesn't matter how much it cost or whatever, you could steal that in game, and that was okay. So there are some elements that went away over the years because that. All the weapon tags and skill tags and all the things that we started with the game, we don't do any of that anymore. We still do item cards. But that was how we were able to follow up and see that person absolutely got checked back in the day.
Yeah. So let's see. Nevis says, no matter how safe everyone is, accident happen, and that's true, and that's why there's that waiver that we have to fill out. Just kind of make sure everyone stays safe.
Yep.
So We also have uh, like hands-off approach unless you have permission to touch somebody. So that's kind of another safety thing that we have in there for that. So yeah. So that's still, but I would say definitely ask those questions next week as well too, because the current staff will be here and they can more accurately answer that. So but they're great questions. So he already asked one of my questions. Did you see it like staying around this long? Did you ever see it, being this big or with this many people or with people showing up with, armor like this or something like that? I mean,
Yeah, from the beginning of the game, and again, I mentioned how much money I put in to start the game. I treated it like a business. My goal was to grow the business to 200 to 250 regular PCs. That was what I was going after. Because when I started, I patterned it after Nero. And Nero, when I went to, oh goodness, I would drive hours up into, it was New Hampshire. Or maybe it was, I think it was New Hampshire. Might have been Western Massachusetts. And I lived in Rhode Island at the time. But you drive hours to go to an event and gather up a large population. Mm-hmm. Like New England, it was easy to get to those numbers. A lot harder in Utah, just because our population is so much smaller, and it's tough for people to drive in from Denver or Vegas or wherever. But that was my goal. My goal was to grow it to hundreds of people, which I didn't think would be possible without running it like a business, because you have to be very organized and you have to market. We used to do ads in movie theaters, and I mean, we did a lot, but it ended up being too much for me to do, and for many reasons, the game went more to a club after 8 or 10 years.
Okay. So he asked if you like the current state of affairs. Is there anything you would like to see changed or
Sure, I'll say one. There's one thing that I would say that I miss the most from the old days of Mythic, and it's just staying in game. When I'm playing, it's my escape, and so I want to escape the real world. So when I see a cell phone, other than like make a record, which is a skill in the game, it takes me out of the suspension of disbelief. Like I said, I own a haunted house. When you're in the haunt, I want you to feel like you're in a movie. I want
Mm-hmm.
you to truly be scared, because everything around you sucks you in. And I love it when I go to a module and I start the module, and once we go in game, I don't want anyone to say my real name or your real name or ask me about coronavirus or anything else. And a lot of times, if you interact with me and you say, "Hey, I saw that on television," and I'll go, "Television? What magic is that? Mm-hmm. I don't understand. I'm so confused. Are you okay?" So that's the one thing is I would really like to bring back when you're in game, stay in game. Yeah. On weekends, like we used to have a rule: if you want to not be in game, you have to go to the edge of the town as far away as you can, and then you very loudly, "I'm going out of game 1. I'm going out of game 2." Then you could talk out of game, and that would be the one thing that I miss, because I love that suspension of disbelief. I love acting and getting in character, and so. The game right now doesn't really push that much.
Yeah, it's definitely really lax on that. Yeah. And it's really difficult at weekenders, too, because they used to have a rule about parking the cars far away. And then some people complained about it.
I was the Nazi for that, because, again, I see your car.
Yeah, it totally, it's like this giant steel carriage or whatever. You have to just deal with it. So I kind of agree that I wish there was a little bit more on that, but...
Yeah. And it's one of the things that separated Mythic early on from other LARPs that split off from Mythic or Quest or Nero or whatever in Utah. The armor, the costumes. I would never allow someone to be an NPC in their T-shirt. That I was like, that will never happen. And I never wanted to hear, "What do I see?" So you wear makeup, you wear a mask, you look like what you look like, and if not, then we had tabards that said troll or whatever. So if you're at night and you see these figures and you can't tell what they are, and you go, "What do I see?" Well, if I'm a troll, I'm going to say, "Hey, I'm a very big humanoid with long arms." I'm not going to say I'm a troll. but I'll go at a game, and I'll explain that. But unless you get close enough, I'm not going to tell you what I am. Mm-hmm. If you do get close enough, then as an NPC, you constantly say, you see a troll. Every time you see someone new, you're like, I'm a troll, and you let them know. But if you're wearing a troll mask, you don't even have to do that. And that's why, I prefer that. And I think that level of dedication on the NPC side is a lot to ask, but it helped make Mythic what it is, and it helped the PCs really deck themselves out. And I mean, you look at the game now, and it's way better even than it was back then, as far as people really taking pride in the way they look as PCs. It's phenomenal.
Well, I think it's a lot easier too now because it's a big enough market that there are actually companies making stuff for LARP.
Yeah,
and so it's a lot easier. You can just go online and go order a leather armor and be done. It doesn't all have to be homemade nowadays. So I think that's kind of one thing that has helped with the production value to go up, at least on the PC side for sure. Yeah. So. Yep. And that's another thing that goes into safety too. We can just buy those foam padded weapons online, and most of those are built to specs because they now know what's required. So but I kind of wish I miss those tabards that said the names on them or whatever.
Yeah.
Because all the time we had, what are you? Or occasionally they'll even prior to the fight be like, look, this color is this monster, this color is this monster. I mean, even that was kind of nice to know, but having to ask, it does kind of break it. And I the car thing, I wish we would go back to moving them, but people complain that it's like, come on, just move your car. Like,
and there are a few people who, for whatever reason, really want their car right next to their tent, and I think the game needs to just step up, and someone needs to be in charge of being that unpopular person who says, you're ruining it for 40 other people. That's not fair. Yeah. So.
Let's see. Brightworm says ads in movie theaters. Wow. And Brightworm says we have a lot of game runners out here that also run haunts. What do you think is that magic crossover between LARP and haunted house?
So movie theaters. So we actually did a TV campaign to grow our membership for a year. We put a % of all of our gross income towards marketing. Again, I wanted hundreds of players, and we had games that reached 100 players, which were phenomenal, and that's what I wanted. What I love is going into a town setting and not knowing 20 of the people there, 50 of the people there. We had years of that, and that it just added so much, I also kind of a crossover between that and what I was talking about before. When I play, if you're a PC or an NPC, I don't treat you any differently. It makes no difference. Once I'm in game, it makes no difference. You're just whatever you are supposed to be. And if everyone treated it like that, which most players do, that makes a big difference. So haunted house, like I said, suspension of disbelief. It's the same thing. A haunt is the adrenaline rush that's safe. LARPing is the same thing. You go into a fight and you get that adrenaline rush, but you're really not going to get stabbed by a beast, But I remember, and this is what hooked me when Scotty was telling me 25 years ago, back more than that, when I first started playing Nero, it was that, oh yeah, and we were going like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I put like charcoal all over my face so I could hide, and then these soldiers came by, and I was playing a thief, and I thought they were going to kill me. I mean, and I'm like, you actually get anxiety and stress inside of a game? Are you kidding me? That's phenomenal. And so haunts have the same thing. You go in, and we, like for our haunt, we do touch. I started doing touch haunts 12 years ago, where we can actually put our hands on you, but you choose, level 1 to level 5, how much, level 0, we're afraid of you as a customer. Level 2, you walk through, no one touches you. Level 3, we can touch you. Level 4, we can drag you away. Level 5, we will drag you away. So LARP is very similar. You go in and you interact as much as you want. You don't have to fight anyone if you don't want to. You can just be a background character. I'm a merchant. Me, sometimes I'll just go to a weekend and I'll gamble and play games and be a merchant, or whatever, because I'm just not, I don't want to go fight. And other times I'm fighting the whole time, and you get to choose that. But I think, like a haunted house, a lot of people are drawn to LARPing because safe adrenaline rush. How do you get
Yeah.
that? If you're not into sports, well, this is one of the only other ways to do that.
Well, and even sports aren't always necessarily safe. There's lots of injuries you have in sports, and I've seen very many injuries in LARP. So,
We've had a few, but not many.
yeah, we've had a few. You're going to, but yeah, like I said, not many, not nearly as many as I see in sports all the time. So, I would really love to see ads run again. Like, that's kind of why I do this, because I love seeing new blood in LARP, and I love going to weekenders, like you said, when there are 60, 70 people there, and I love having those huge groups and me not knowing half of them. Like, I would love to see, like, I guess I'll have to talk to staff about that and see what we could do, but because I would love to see that again. I know a lot of other people have seen new blood too. Like Winterfest, we had, I think, 2 or 3 new people, and that was just, like, for me, that makes it just that much more exciting, just to see new blood. So
Absolutely.
I would love to see that, man. Let's see. Oh, we have a graphic designer in our back pocket too. Yeah, we got someone who can help us out with that. So, let's see. Brightworm says fantastic answers. Thanks so much. Nevitz Gaming says he'd like to see more of that again too. I think he's talking about the in game, keeping it in game, and the tabards with the item with the names on them. And then he says your son is responsible for my most terrifying LARP moment. Well, why don't you go ahead and type that in the chat, Nevitz, if you want to share that, because that sounds kind of interesting.
Yeah, and I'm sure so others know you're referring to my son Braden, who was 2 or 3 when I started the game, who now has run adventures and is a steady fixture in the game, which is awesome, because he came with me for years and years to the events, and he'd be a goblin at 5 years old, and he's stuck with it for a long time.
Yeah, just kind of a natural progression to come in and play, and now he does run adventures, and he's on plot. I know that now. So, and he's a fun character. I like his character. He's had some lot of twists and turns in games too, so it's fun. I like Melostrasa though. But yeah, I appreciate all these questions everyone's had. I'm trying to think of some more that I had. What do you have any classes that Frack is, or?
Well, this gets to my I don't really follow the rules anymore. Like they change so many times in such a short period of time that I backed off and I said, all right, I'm no longer going to even try. I will go and role play, but if I play a character who gets in a fight, I will know the simplest stuff, and if I'm not sure what's happening, I'm going to fall down and die.
Yeah.
Because for me, I don't play for the rules. The rules are simply a way for me to try to. It was to create a game that would last forever, that I could role play. And I wanted combat to be as basic as possible, which, again, has changed a lot over the years. Now, that being said, the current rule set, I think, is better than what we started with. I think the game has done a phenomenal job with the rules, and I think they're awesome. No rule set will ever be perfect. No. That's just not going to happen. What is my class? I was just trained in the innate casting class. What is that called? That's Frack. Who knows? What is it?
What is it? Innate magic or something?
Tell us what it is. What's the class? It's not Arcanist. It's something where you can cast innately.
Is it one of the new ones that they just made?
Yeah, it's one of the new ones.
We just talked about it last week. It's the if we pull up the list, I can find it.
Oh, I was waiting for someone to type it in.
They might too. Nevitz might be.
Come on,
Nevitz
Sheriff.
Might be. Yeah,
Eldritch. There you go.
You got it. Eldritch Soul. That's it.
That is my current class.
Nice. Yeah, we talked about that one last week, I think, didn't we?
I think so.
Yeah, we talked about it last week, so we won't be able to talk about that one this week, but we can go over.
As soon as there was something where I didn't have to memorize stuff and just say innate, I was like, that is what I'm going for. Make it simple.
Yeah. So Brightworm, we do actually have a Warlock class, but it's a little different than innate casting, and it deals a lot with, what are they called, like voodoos or something? Like they have things that they can't do, but they have a power source. So for some of them, it's ancestors. For some of them, it's various different things. So It is interesting that you mentioned that because there is one. If you go to the website, mythicrealms.com, and you go to the Book of Heroes, is that where all the classes are? I think so. Yeah, sounds like a D&D sorcerer. Yeah, the Elder Soul, and it's a new class too. So, and a lot of people are liking it. So, and it specifically cannot be combined with the wizard. I know that one because we talked about that last week too. So, okay. So Nevitz, his event with your son. He says Boji was teleported away from the party and forced into a one-on-one confrontation with the Black Morag. OMG, I was shaking. And for those of you guys that don't know, Black Morags are like one Black Morag could take out a good squad of regular like infantry. I would say even more than a squad. So they were scary creatures that were really beefy, and even one of them could take half of our party.
Especially when you're a skilled fighter like Braden is.
Yeah, he had to go one-on-one and fight with him. I remember that. He was, oh man. So, in fact, there was another event where Braden showed up as a Black Morag, and it was when we were playing new characters, and everyone went out on a module, and we stayed back at the tavern, and this Black Morag shows up at the tavern, and I'm like, oh man, if we throw down, we are dead. We are so dead. And it ended up, who was there that was showing off? What was, I can't remember his name now. It's your older brother. He was there.
My literal older brother, like Jonathan or Rob?
No, yeah, Rob. He was there, and he was one of his characters that, like, when there's a full moon, he's, like, invincible. And so he's like, all right, you want to go? Let's go. And so he's like, and it was the craziest thing just watching them just kind of dish out blows to each other and just
Rob
kinda,
Lee is who you're referring to.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, and they basically just, yeah, they just kind of, yeah, they were just showing off, and I was like, okay, yeah, you just keep that over there, and I'm gonna stay over here, and don't piss them off too much. But I remember just sitting over there, quaking in my boots, thinking, oh, this is gonna be my character's first death, just like this, staying in the tavern, like.
As we said in the original rules, sometimes discretion is the better part of valor. Mm-hmm. Run away.
Yeah.
Stay out of it.
Yep.
Hide behind your ward.
Yep.
Do whatever it takes.
Yep. Yeah. I wish my bonds would hide behind me a little more often. They're a little too outgoing. So, yeah. Let's see. I'm trying to think of I had some more questions too, and I forgot them all now that we've been going. So, so other than the in-game thing, was there anything else that you wanted to like see, or would hope maybe would change, or? You know,
I had the dream of the game being very big, you know, and people driving in from Denver or you know, Sacramento, Vegas, you know, the bigger cities that surround us. But the truth is, the game, LARPing, you know, isn't the nerdy, terrible thing, you know, shunned, not terrible, but shunned thing that it was back in the 80s and 90s when D&D, you know, was going to eat your soul. And I think, you know, religion and other things really have changed their attitudes towards dressing up and playing. Now it's a good thing, and it's cool to be a geek and a nerd and all the things that were shunned back then. So I think if it was advertised, I think you could easily have 300-400 person events in Salt Lake without even getting the people driving in from 6 hours away. But you would get that if you had a big event. So I wish that that someone would treat a LARP, whether it's Mythic or anything, like a business. Put the money behind it to get commercials back out and whatnot. Because I think if we had done, if we did now what we did 20 years ago, it would be a 300-person game. Yeah. You know, but that takes a dedicated staff. It takes a lot of things that I'm not able or willing to do right now. So, you know, I would help fund it, but I wouldn't. I just don't have the time, energy, whatnot anymore, unfortunately. So maybe Braden will do that someday. Yeah. So, but to no fault of anyone in the current staff or anything else, again, they're awesome and have kept the game alive. Yeah. Which is awesome. Yeah.
Lounge live on Sundays at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time at twitch.tv/Aerorstar. That's twitch.tv/ARRUSTAR.
We're at Ascendance Gaming Center. So it's kind of a lounge gaming center. You can do VR, do PC gaming, general hangout spot. We have some board games. We have some retro consoles that you can play as well. What we're trying to do here is we're trying to bring back the feel of 80s arcades. You know, everyone would meet at the arcade and they'd have a good time, and that would be like the hangout spot. All the equipment's provided. We have top of the line PCs. You can log into your own services via Steam or Origin. You play any of those, download your own games and play them on our computers, and you're good to go. And we have a selection of VR games, about 600 or something games available. Every Monday we have a Smash tournament, a Super Smash Bros. Melee, and then once a month they do a monthly tournament. We're also hosting a CSGO tournament now, and we're doing a Hearthstone tournament and a Beat Saber tournament.
Yeah, I would. Like I said earlier, I would love to see that. I would like for Winterfest. Last year's Winterfest was one of the biggest that I've been to, and I like that. And I think we partnered with another LARP. I think it was Y, but we had a lot of people there, and it was so much fun just seeing all these new faces. Like I said, but I have to agree with you 100% there. I would love to see that. So what? Speaking of, we did have what was it, an Idaho chapter? I missed all those years. What ended up happening with them? How come we don't?
I think he became a doctor or dentist or something and just got too busy. The guy who was running it up there. Yeah. And so he was the ringleader of that group. And when he was unable to keep playing, I think that's the biggest reason we lost that chapter. Him. Yeah. So, but like someone was saying, there's a, I know there are a lot of LARPers like in Seattle. If we tried to reach out to other groups, I'm sure we could create a very large event, you know, where you rent a Boy Scout camp or, you know, something like that. You got to put thousands of dollars into it, have insurance, all those things. But people would come if you set up something, even if it was once a year. And I know there have been big, I think Nero has done big events in Texas that, you know, that drew hundreds of people. I don't know about thousands, but it probably exists in other games outside of Utah. I think Utah could pull that many people if someone said, "All right, I'm going to make this happen."
Yeah, I agree. I think we could, because even this is pulled in a few people, and this is a very small scale operation. So, Bright Williams says, with the Utah connection, how do you feel about the Evermore theme park as it relates to a LARP as a business model?
So I haven't been to Evermore. I've chatted with Ken, the owner, but more on the haunted house side of things. And I wish I had his money, because he's done amazing things from everything I've seen and heard about the place. But I don't know beyond that. The last time I chatted with him was before he opened up the park. So I don't really know the details of it, but I think what he's trying to do is fantastic. Someday, maybe when I'm not so busy, I'll get more into LARPing again and try to be a driving force or try to join up with someone like Ken at Evermore and try to create something incredible. So one of my goals, and my wife supports this, thank goodness, is to bring a fair, a Ren fair, to Utah in the style of some of the other big Ren fairs around the country, where you have a permanent year-round town that is built on the medieval, on a large medieval scope, where you can do a lot of events, including LARP. And we've tried to do that. Other people have tried to do that. There is a Ren fair in Utah, but I don't know what it's been the last couple of years. But I want one where you can drink, because if you can't drink alcohol, you're not going to get tourists. You're not going to get the money that you need to do something huge. And I like to drink, so I want that too. But who knows? Maybe in a few years I will try to make that happen. On a very big scale, and I think something like that would bring gamers, LARPers together to be able to have huge events.
I think we could try to partner with Evermore, or even just get some advertising there, which would be great, because people that go there, clearly that's already down their alley for sure. So, yeah, me and Nevitz went during the Halloween one, and we had a blast. It was so much fun. Me and him are now both Knights of Evermore, and they give us specific titles. I'm Jovi the Adamant. We actually and I was dressed in my full gear, and I played my character while I was there. It was a lot of fun. So, but
No,
yeah,
I think that's a great idea. It's just I don't know if anyone does marketing anymore for
I don't think we do.
Mythic Realms.
I wish
you know.
we would. So,
Yeah.
but I know that's something probably down the road.
If that's what the game wants. I think
Yeah.
right now the game is happy to have 40 to 60 players on a weekend and 30 people at modules. It's a manageable size that keeps it more family oriented. You have less issues. More people. You're always going to have someone who, especially if you go out drinking or anything, you're going to have issues with that. The more people you have. Language, staying in game, you always have more issues when you have more people. Rules Nazis who, cheaters, all the things that happen. Everyone who LARPs knows that those people come and go. But I don't think Mythic really wants to deal with that stuff right now.
Yeah.
And I don't blame them. I don't either. But yeah, someday I hope that changes.
Yeah, like Nevis says, we do have a Facebook, so I know that they are trying to grow a little bit. Because they want that out there and they want people, and they post photos to it all the time. Like they have a lot of photos from Winterfest. Some really good looking ones. Some really good looking characters. Yeah. Like Sir Fallen was there, all decked out.
Scotty.
Yeah, he looked.
He's the guy who got me into LARPing.
Yeah, he looked so good. I was like, man, that is some. And he's gonna be on the show hopefully in 2 weeks. He's like, cool. You want me to do all that? I'm like, you don't have to do all that. Like, I'm like, you can just come and frick if you want, but. So, hopefully, we'll have to see. We're trying to work that one out still, but
cool.
It's supposed to be him and Steinberg talking about backgrounds.
Cool.
Because we need to talk about that. That's huge. But, so.
Yeah, and you're not the only one who likes the game small. There are a lot of people who do. Me, I like a big game. I enjoy the game as it is, but I have twice as much fun when there are twice as many players there. As long as the game is being handled correctly. Yeah. Again, if everyone's out of game all the time, it's probably one of the reasons I don't play as much as I do. Just because it's not as fun when half the time you're out of game. It's half as fun. So if you have twice as many people there, but they're out of game all the time, I still probably wouldn't play very much.
Yeah. I know they're trying real hard for the tavern specifically to stay in game chat. Like
good.
Yeah, the Tavern Keeps have been trying to keep that. They're like, and if they hear it, they'll even call you out. So good. I've actually kind of been appreciating that because there'll be people just talking about regular life, and it's like, dude, you're totally breaking the immersion here. Like, I don't want to be talking about schoolwork or whatever.
Well, maybe you can help me change that. There are a group of us, the privateer group, because of course we're not pirates. The privateer group and Mike and Rick and Josh, we're going to run a campaign, but that's our number one rule. The number one rule is if you want to be, if you want to PC our events, our modules, our things, you're in game. If you're not in game, we will take you out of game, literally. You will not play on those because we will be in game 100% of the time. So who knows? Maybe that'll have an influence on like how the summer goes. But I know other people really like being out of game a lot, so it's tough.
Yeah. Executions for everyone using out of game conversations. I think that's a bit extreme, but. It would definitely get the point across if we did something like that for sure. But yeah, I agree. I don't like it, but I think I'm guilty of using my cell phone for sure too. But
well, and I don't even try. I mean, it's so prevalent to be out of game now. I've given up saying stuff.
Yeah.
But like I know Mythic is trying to curtail language, which I've said language a million times in the game. But we used to be really good with keeping it family friendly, and we had gotten further away from that. And now the game's trying to rein that back in, which I appreciate.
Yeah. So. Yeah, there was for a little while. There was definitely a problem. So
I don't care if people swear off in their little groups with adults, but when you're in a public setting, a big group setting, I just don't think it's called for.
Yeah. So. Yeah, Winterfest, I actually dropped the F-bomb, and I was like, I mean, crap. Like, but that's when I got assassinated, so I was totally not expecting it. It was just me and one other guy, though, so I don't know that he cared, but I still was, like, conscientious and tried to correct myself, but I remember that was...
No, and it's habits. You know,
Yeah.
if you're constantly being reminded, language, then you'll learn. It might take a while, but you will learn to get your language in check. Same thing with being in game and out of game. If everyone helps each other, if that's a goal, if the game decides that that's a goal, then people will be in game because you'll be ostracized if you're breaking the rules. So,
Yeah, I just don't understand why you'd come to a game and then talk about real life. Like, I don't know, but then again, some of these people, that's the only time they see these people, so it's their only outlet to talk to them. So,
well,
I mean,
and if that's the norm, then they just do it. But if the game decides, hey, let's try going back to being in game all the time, then hey, get all your chats in before you go in game, and then if you really need to chat at a game, go off in private where no one else can hear you.
Yeah,
So.
don't do it in the tavern. Yeah, and I like that for sure. I even told the tavern key this last year. I said I appreciate you doing that. Like, it helps with the game. So, and he's like, that's how I think it should be. So, there's a few elements in there that like it like that, but I don't think there's enough that we could make a difference. So maybe we can see. But hey, Proceed with Caution says, "What's up, guys?" That would be Crow.
Grow.
So, another sheriff.
Yep.
So, was he sheriff when you played mostly, or?
Well, as who? I mean, yeah. So he was the sheriff for a while, but you know, Bogey's always the sheriff in Frack's opinion.
Yeah.
Larry.
So, well, hello. We have a new LARPer here, Larry the LARPer, who's shaking like crazy. Are you nervous being on camera? Is it making you nervous there? Oh.
Sorry. Come here, buddy. Larry, get down.
What about you, Travis? Any questions? Anything you want us to chat about here? Eventually, I have to go back to work, so I bought a pawn shop, and I'm trying to buy another business right now too. So life is busy.
Yeah, we can go as long as you want to go. So we've already hit almost an hour. So we kind of seem to be wrapping up real quick, but we managed to get it going, so that's good. So I just got here. I don't know what's been discussed.
Let's just throw something out there.
Yeah, it's fine. We're okay with it. Give that dog a buffer and have him go for the legs. Yeah. So we have a dog that's always at the weekenders too. So what's his name? I can't even remember now. Do you remember his name, guys? I don't even remember. It's Jayla's dog. He's always there.
I've seen pictures of it.
Yeah. So.
No.
So I'll throw something out there like memories. Like for me, some of the memories in the game that are some of my favorite are back in the day. For anyone who remembers that, we had 7 or 8 of us who ran the NPC camp, and it was great. And that's like Rex Riviere was a big part of plot back then. Oh gosh, I'm so bad with names. Heather and Bill Hins, and that whole crowd, and we had the fellowship group, you know, with Sean and Tamara Keene and the Michelle, and Chris was on plot. He did a lot. Chris Berry. And we had such a big staff that were regular NPCs. It was incredible because you could do so much more when you have 8-10 full-timers and then a bunch of part-time NPCs. It just made the game easy. You know, it made the game easy to do whatever you wanted to do, to create whatever you wanted to create. Outnumbering the PCs from time to time, you know, is a rare thing these days. You know, but back then, you're in town and all of a sudden 20 NPCs come running at you, and you're like, oh no! I mean, I'm really afraid now.
Yeah.
And then I miss that. I miss the adrenaline. You know, not just miss. I enjoy that because I still get it in the game today, but not as much as I did back then with more numbers. And I used to have a bigger fear, you know, of dying than I do today. I think the game's gentler today.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember some of those old day battles with 80 people fighting all at once. I love that.
Yeah.
I don't know, 30 NPCs against 50 PCs all out in a field at 2 a.m. And you were there for part of that back in 02, 03. Well, yeah. I mean, we had some big ones back then.
Yeah. I remember, so this will kind of age me. One of my first weekenders was the one where we blew up the town when you were playing the demon that was coming in to kill us, and we had to hold you off to get that ritual off to blow up the town. So, I mean, that was ages ago, but I remember that. And then I remember there was another one, again, where I think you were a demon, and it was just pouring rain, and nobody even cared. We were all just out there battling in the rain. And this was back when we had, I think I was NPCing too. I don't even remember because I didn't PC a whole lot back then. But RIP Falcon Crater, yeah. Can't even remember. Somebody tackled somebody and they both started rolling around in the mud and they both got up and they were just completely brown. And it was just, I missed those. Were crazy. But so, Proceed with Caution says, what direction would you like to see Mythic go?
Well, I would like to see the bigger game, the bigger full immersion game. But I'm not willing to put the time in, so I'm not criticizing or critiquing. Yeah. I'm just saying that would be my preference. Go back to, hey, this % of the game goes towards marketing. We will 100% spend this money on marketing. Maybe take part of the income aside for big events and say, all right, we're going to take 10% of the income, and in 2 years, in 2023, 2022, we're going to try to get a 200-person event. And we're going to reach out to the LARPers in Seattle and the LARPers in Denver and all over, and in Salt Lake and Idaho and everywhere. I think cross-promoting, trying to do some stuff with Evermore, things like that, and put some serious money into it. Rent a really cool place, and have a 4-day event, and you stay in game the whole time. I think something like that would be a really cool goal. Not just for us, but any of the LARPs that want to see that, because I know there are other LARPs that run. I don't know if they're bigger or smaller than Mythic, but I think that you could reach out and do a simplified rules version, a big event like that.
I do know that we're trying to, for Gaming Con, trying to get a panel set together for Mythic Realms for LARPing. So
cool.
Yeah, for the talk show and for Mythic Realms in general. So we have to just wait till they announce the dates, and then we got to talk to staff. But that's something that we wanted to do. So
cool. Hopefully
that'll help. And then he also asked, which you kind of covered in your answer, but he says, is there something Mythic is doing now that you'd like to see stop or improve on, which you kind of already covered. And then he says, I would like to see more people, proceed with caution. Says, I would like to see more people stay in game more often. I think it's one thing that's made Mythic seem and be softer.
And that's like the big topic that we've had for the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, we were talking about
the biggest thing I said is staying in game. And with our campaign that we're talking about doing, that's our number one rule, is you're in game all the time.
Yeah.
So we certainly agree, and I think you'll see, because we're pushing that, you'll see more of it, and then we'll see what happens on the weekends.
Yeah.
I live for the weekends. I mean, I enjoy modules; they're fun, but to me, they're a 3 out of 10 compared to a weekend, which can be a 10 out of 10 in fun. So.
Yeah. Real quick, I forgot to do this earlier, but thank you, Nevis, for the subscription. I did see it. I just didn't say anything. So let me do my subscription dance. Thank you for the subscription, Nevis. Sorry, I didn't say anything earlier. I just remembered it because I was looking over at the screen, but it still didn't show up on the. But
I don't know what's wrong.
the alert showed up. But anyway, so.
Miss Bright Worms. What's your name?
Oh. Oh, okay. Brightworm says there have been a few conversations about service animals at LARP. Good, bad, indifferent. Some folks feel that animals can't tell what is real and what is acting and may get agitated. I don't know that we've ever had to deal with that with Mythic Realms specifically. So
not much, but we have.
Have we?
Mm-hmm. So we've had dogs that bark and get agitated. I think that it's easier not to have animals involved, but I also understand that some people are too anxious to not have their dog. For example, I think is the most prevalent service animal that I've seen, and so you just do your best. a trained service animal is not going to bite anyone. And so if they're a true service animal, I would be fine with them being there. And if they get too agitated, then you have to ask the owner of the animal to step out.
Yeah.
You know, so that you can stay in game, because that's such a massive thing for me, is staying in game. What would you need to happen to bring a normal half-day module closer to that 10 out of 10? Number one is the immersion. I think modules are less immersive because you're not out in the woods. You have to pretend more a lot of times. Or you're in, like the haunted house is one of the popular indoor events. But you've been in that same thing, and you have to pretend it's a cave. You have to pretend it's this. You have to pretend, and yet it's the same halls that you walk, so you know where the turns are. All of those things. So I think having new venues is a big part of it. Sticking to as little as possible, saying you see this. Actually, fizz repping whatever it is that you need to see. Like, I don't remember what year it was. Earlier Mythic, we did a graveyard scene at Whiting Campground. Probably my favorite Mythic memory as far as a setup goes, because we brought a whole bunch of props up from the haunted house, and we built a graveyard, with fog, chilled fog, and I mean, it was awesome. And people were like, that was intense. And for me, that's what it's all about. I love that intensity. I want that adrenaline. So creating that on a half-day module is hard. Not impossible, but it's harder, a lot harder. Because it takes a while to get in character. It takes a while to feel like you're immersed, that suspension of disbelief. And on modules, a lot of times, most times, NPCs are unable to stay ahead of the PCs, and so you have to call a hold, or you have to do this. Not to say that it can't be done. And back in the day, that was one of our biggest things, was how do I slow the PCs down? Well, I have a door with a riddle. I have a puzzle. I have this trap that they have to disarm. You put those things in so the PCs never have a walking hold, never have that, as much as possible. It's just harder on a module, because a module is usually go from this point to this point to this point to this point to this point, all in a building, or all in a smaller setting. Once you get outside, it's a lot easier. But the weekend, you have the ability to get fully immersed. So it's tough for a module to get there, but not impossible.
So Brightworm says that graveyard scene sounds magical, and I remember when we used to have a specified plot in town that was the graveyard, and we don't even bother with that anymore. Like, I see them bring up the tombstones, but they never get put out. So, in fact, like last weekend, we actually had a part that was in the graveyard, and there was nothing there. It was just like we were in the graveyard because they told us we were, and it was kind of.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
that's why. Again, when we started Mythic, we had a dedicated graveyard. We had a gypsy camp, a mages guild, a fighters guild, a healers guild. I mean, we had everything that you would think of in a typical adventuring town. We had them all, and we forced them to be spread out. So you couldn't just all camp in a field, and you're protected. No, to get from this building to that building, you had to walk through the forest to get there. You had to walk down the dark path. You had to, it was. We forced the game to be scarier, to be more intense, because that's what we wanted, and some people didn't like it, but most people loved it. So yeah, but it was a lot more work. I mean, it took me half a day to prep for a weekend. Then I'd have to go up Friday morning and set up tents and stuff all day long. And then sometimes on Sunday, I was getting out of there at midnight, because I had a giant trailer full, and my car and another car all filled with stuff. And sometimes it was just me, packing it up. So that's the work. The work behind it is tremendous. And kudos to everyone who do that work today. But to get back to that, you need to plan it, and you need people to put in the hours and hours of sweat and labor, which is tough unless you're doing it like a business, So
Let's see. So proceed with caution says I have seen a dramatic increase in walking hold lately. I would have to agree with that 100%. Let's see. We do on weekends. We are down to so there's only 3 graveyard stones left. So that may. I think I did see a few of them now that you mention it because there's not very many anymore. He says we need to get more. And then lastly, proceed with caution says so. It sounds like a lot of what you see missing is the pre-event prep.
In some ways, the events are more prepared than they used to be because initially I bought all of that stuff and had a lot of help in setting it up. People ran their own guilds, but as players came and went, it became more and more just me over the years, and I made plenty of mistakes to help people leave and hopefully come back. But the fact is, the game is very prepared now. Like Gomez, for example, keeping the magic items and really keeping his thumb on making sure that the economy and whatnot works. I love that. I think that's fantastic. But it takes a lot of work to do that. So there are some things that are done better now than they used to be done. But it's the labor. It's the labor and having a huge plot team and or someone who gets paid a lot of money to do enough money to spend all those extra hours. And for a hobby game, there isn't that money. It doesn't exist anymore. So unless you get more players, it's expensive just to run the game as it is. So we'll see. I think we will go more in that direction, though. I feel like the game is heading in that direction. I know staff has made some changes monetarily over the last couple of months that will make the game have more money, and I think that will help the game do better at a lot of these things in the coming years.
Proceed with caution says a labor of love can be hard to justify these days. So,
Yep.
yeah.
But maybe the game in the next year or whatever will start putting money behind that labor of love to say, hey, we'd love you to come up. Some of you new or younger players or whatever, we'll pay you each $100 to set all of this stuff up and tear it down. And it costs an extra. You pay a group of people a couple $100, but if the game has that money, it's a great way to offload some of that labor, and then basically they're playing for free, and maybe even getting free food, free free gameplay, and $20, and $30 to do a lot of that labor, which is just hard to do with a smaller game. The bigger game can afford that. A smaller game struggles.
Yeah. So proceed with said that's a wonderful idea. So sounds like he likes that. He's on staff, and I have a feeling he takes a lot of what we talk about here back to staff. So it's nice
Good.
to have him on here. Yeah, we talk about it a lot, so that's good. So I may pick your brain in person for some additional things. So
Anytime.
so
You know where I work. And I have a hot tub, so we can always do a hot tub night at my house and do a mythic brainstorming session. I'm totally down for that.
yeah. So all right. Well, how much more time did you have, or did you want to get heading out, or?
My thought was like an hour and a half.
Okay,
So I think we've got another 15 minutes or so.
So we already talked about some of your favorite, memories and stuff like that, which is usually one of our questions too. So,
I'll throw another one out there. So, Scotty, who got me into LARPing all those years ago at Nero, and helped so much with Mythic when we first started. His character Fallen, which you just mentioned, was a regular PC for a long time. As a what was the race? Were they the Fallen? Oh gosh, I can't remember. They were Plagued One. They were a Plagued One. So he was a Plagued One PC, and his Plagued One Fallen was undead, and he wore that foam mask, which was so creepy when you're sleeping next to him, and you open your eyes and you just see him, like snoring with his little, because he had the 2-piece skull, It was so creepy. And I love that. And back in the day, we spent so much time sneaking up on people and, and trying to get to the gypsy camp in the middle of the night was always terrifying because it was pitch black under the trees and you're walking through and then you see someone like fall and come out of the woods and it really made your heart leap. But one of my favorite memories was Laura Bador, who also helped run the game and do a lot early on, was playing this character who came in and she sings and dances, she's theater, all of those things, and she came in and sang a song to Fallen in the tavern in front of everyone, and just totally embarrassed this bad ass character, in the middle of the tavern, and that is one of my favorite all time experiences. I don't know if anyone on was there for that, but it's preparation, it's time, it's she just nailed it. it was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
So proceed with caution says, ooh, did you like my Plagued One mask for Winterfest?
Yep, absolutely.
And let's see, Brightwind says sleeping with your mask on is pretty hardcore. That foam gets sweaty.
Yes, it does. Yep, and you would have to re-glue it on because you run around all day, and then you still play all night.
Yeah.
And sleeping is it used to be a 4 a.m., maybe 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. thing. That was it. If you got 6 hours sleep on a weekend, you're good, in 2 nights. So
yeah.
I typically would play Kalan for years. I would come in, I'd go get all my black makeup on, play a Zelicu, our dark elf race. And he would come in to watch the sunrise every morning in the town.
Wow.
So ask Josh Steinberg about that. He would always run and hide because he was always up, but he was hiding under a log or something.
I'll have to talk to him if we can get him on here. So, Colon was scary.
Yep.
I don't think I ever met that character. I think that's when I kind of was on my hiatus for a while. But
I still play him occasionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's the big assassin, and has his own plot lines and guilds and things, which again I hate to reveal secrets, so I won't. You've probably met him and didn't know it.
Oh, okay.
So
in disguise or something.
In disguise.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But he's come in game a few times over the last 5 years.
Well, yeah, then maybe I did. 'Cause I've been playing at least 3 years now, I think. So, so that's been fun. So, all right, I think feels like a good stopping point here. So we're about time when you wanted to end anyway. So that works out. So we got to discuss a few things. As long as nothing changes with my personal plans, we will be doing next week with some. Proceed says, Frack, thanks for coming on the show, and yeah, I appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.
It's been nice
Thanks for
answering some questions that that I've always wondered, like how did it get started and everything like that. So it's been nice to know, and it'll be on YouTube and everything too. So I guess that's the first thing we'll talk about is on every Wednesday we upload. Yeah, well, we're getting caught up again. We upload this onto YouTube, and we have a podcast on this available on Anchor. So people can listen to this or watch this later. So we've been getting a lot of views that way. As long as
has been behind.
we're a little behind right now, but we're getting caught up. So I think we have only like 2 more. Well, after 3, including this one now.
3, including last week. So this will be 4.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be caught up by the end of the week.
So, and as I said earlier to a few of you, next week I have 2 people from staff that are going to be on here. So that would be another place for those great questions, Brightworm.
Yeah, and thanks for the questions. That really makes everything more fun when we get to interact.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you being here. I know you guys found me on Twitter, and I appreciate the support, so I appreciate that. But yeah, so they'll be on here next week. Thanks from Brightworm Studios and the LARPerazzi in Seattle.
Nice.
So
that's awesome. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, I've been seeing them a little bit, and they've been posting stuff about a lot of European LARPs too. Like they had some award show or something, which is kind of cool.
I've heard they're big, and they have actual castles.
Yeah.
Which that's along with the getting a Ren fair. I'll have a castle in Utah, a real one at some point.
Nice. That would be awesome.
Matter of time.
That would be awesome. But so yeah, that's the plan for next week. We'll be talking about plot and like what it is to run the game and how they come up with plot and everything like that, and then different questions for staff. So that'll be great for us for next week. That's assuming I don't go out of town. If I go out of town, we're gonna have to alter things, but I'll let you guys know on my Discord. So if you want to join my Discord, that would be where I keep you all updated on what's going on there. Second thing is we filmed this here at the Ascendance Gaming Center. They are a LAN center in South Salt Lake. They're awesome. They have 2 VR stations. They have the best prices in the valley. They only charge per hour. They don't charge per person like a lot of other places do for the VR, so that's great. So you can have a party there really easy. They have 3 Ultra machines, so you can come play some game 4. Oh, there's 4 now? Nice. So they have... Oh, cool. So you guys are getting that going. So you can come play some of your games on some of the highest settings. So we really appreciate them. They get up. They are open way late Saturday night, and they get up way early for us to do this. So I appreciate that. We talked about uploading it. What else do we have to talk about? Oh yeah, no. Obviously, this whole season we've been talking about Mythic Realms, and then if you wanted to talk a little bit about Castle of Chaos and the escape rooms, you can go ahead and do that real quick if you wanted to. Or
sure, I'll just throw a little bit out there. So I think one of the things that helped Mythic survive all these years is I started a haunted house about the same time I started Mythic, just a little bit after in 2001. Over the years, we've had sometimes one haunted house, but we've had it year round to be able to play in, up to 3 big haunted houses, and it's great over the winter to have that continuity, being able to play once a week or whatever it is. We've gone more and less over the years, so it's great from a LARP setting, and sometimes the game markets to the crowd, which when you get tens of thousands of people hearing about LARPing and that, oh, you do it in a haunted house, that's an easy way to grab a few more players every year too. But yeah, the haunted house is Castle of Chaos. We're currently in Midvale, 7980 South State Street. We operate in about 15,000 square feet, mostly underground, plus some supporting space on top of that. And it's like the LARP, I like the intensity, and that's why early on I was talking about like the levels of fear that we allow you to choose. Just like LARPing, you can come in and you don't have to fight, you don't have to participate in melee combat. You can throw spell packets if you want. You can play as a page who never actually gets hit with anything, or just avoid combat. And the people on plot always ensure that there are things for everybody to do, whether you're a fighter or not. And that helps make great events. So Castle, we kind of have that same theme. And then year-round, we have escape rooms. We have 4 to 5 escape rooms, depending on when, that operate inside the haunt as well. And same thing. It kind of all fits together. LARPing and escape rooms and haunted house. We run them. I run whatever I run. It's about that suspension of disbelief. Even if you're in one of our escape rooms, you feel like whatever that theme is real, and you're under a crunch time. You have 1 hour to get out. I love modules like that. I love that feeling of I really need to do this. I really want to do this. So it all fits together great.
yeah. Yeah, I appreciate you being here, and we really appreciate being able to use your space at Castle. Like you said, it's nice in the winter, so we all don't have to go freeze our butts off outside. So,
yep.
So, and I don't know if enough people thank you for that, but I wanted to thank you specifically.
Thanks.
So, Proceed with Caution says, I missed the building up on Highland Drive. Tons of good memories. I have to agree 100% with that. That's where I started Mythic even, so that's got some good memories for me. That's actually where the Smash Brothers were created, was up at Highland Drive.
Yep.
So, like, that's ages ago. We played them as NPCs and then just shifted them over into PCs. So,
yep.
Brightworm says, besides, who doesn't love freaking out the mundanes?
Amen to that.
And then I'm quite excited for what we got going on, man. I don't know if what you mentioned, so I won't get into anything. Well,
I talked about just the basics, that we're running a series of campaigns. But speaking of which, we need to get together. So, back to that hot tub in my house that I was at till 3 o'clock in the morning last night. But yeah, I'll get with you soon, and we'll figure out our next meeting and where we're gonna go from that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks everyone else for being here. Thanks for the questions and the comments. Thanks for the subscriptions, and thanks for the follows that we had last week. I appreciate those. Other than that, we'll see you guys all next week, and talk to you later. Bye.